the last mile connectivity is concerned, that is a huge concern, and there is still thought processes that are going on, and I don't think there is a ready-made solution as of now, I must admit that. But you have raised a very important point, and for Ashas, we are trying to give them tablets, and we are holding hackathons, and we are holding competitions amongst youngsters, startups who are trying to create models which will suit specifically, say, Asha, because these are very very specific needs. So after the need assessment has been carried out, we are throwing open a competition, and we are asking the public and the youngsters, startups to come with solutions, and then we will look at it and then adopt it, but not any one size fits all. So thank you.
Right. Thanks a lot. So as a conclusion, Professor said at the beginning you really wanted to hear the panelists and learn from what they have to say. So I'd like to bring back the final word to you, if you don't mind.
Thank you very much. Really, first of all, I will say that I'm not expert in the health.
और कितना टाइम बाकी है?
On the one hand, we are talking about AI, and on the other hand, my colleague from the PDB mentioned that even the population don't even have access to some basic infrastructure is also missing. Yet the difference you see the global north to the global south, there is no diversity. And we need to recognize, and when we are talking about public health system,
प्लेस पे है
that the word public is very important. And it needs to be inclusive of that whole country.
No, only 5 minutes.
And another point is we mentioned that development is not easier. I know that go up down like beat, heartbeat, but it need to go up first rather than going down. And there we have to see that how we can develop it. And this AI used to have to be to the health system, but also the growth, like not only the health, the public health, but also so what we is very good learning about things, and that's what at the RI induction we are doing. We are studying what is happening at the global south, what the real contexts are there, what are the real problems there. We are talking with the real think tanks in the global south, let's share the problem, and then we all and just for your information, we have like MOU with more than 156 think tanks across 90 countries. That's
इसमें
how we
प्लगइन
are
वगैरह डाउनलोड कर रखा
working
है
with the
OBS का
Thank you.
अगर OBS
Thank you. Now that all
OBS
the
में
mic is
और भी कुछ एक्स्ट्रा OBS में चेक करने के लिए सब ग्रुप में ना अपना अपना रूम बन गया था चल नहीं जाता पहले अपने लगा चली गया था तो वही लगाया था मैंने
They are with one challenge, and that is going on. All of them are that what everybody can notice cooperation amongst the global south countries is not only needed, not only anticipated, it is a must. There is no use of reinventing the wheel again and again and wasting the already existing. So that is why we have
सिक्सटी वाले को सेटअप किया 3 बजे से 3 बजे से 6 वाला को सेटअप FF6 का वो ड्राइव अरे FF6 का ड्राइव इनका 3 बजे से मिला दीजिए
and that is what makes production the radical
Excellent. So before I conclude this time, we want to
তার জন্য
people get to know more about it, they start using it, and they work on it. So, you know, we are working, as we started, it was all about transcending the language barrier, but as we move forward, it is now a situation where we are bridging the digital divide, bridging the literacy divide, because we are using voice as a medium. People are using for increasing productivity, again, because voice is there, and then obviously the language barrier anyway is gone. Today we operate this means we touch every citizen of the country through our partnerships like UIDI. We touch every village and panchayat through our partnership with Ministry of Panchayati Raj. And we do about 15 to 18 million inferences a day, which is, that means 15 to 18 million times our system is requested for a translation there, and almost 100 million a week or 400 million a month. And we are growing at a rate of approximately 15 to 20% month on month. That means there was a latent need for this kind of a system. And one of the reasons why we are able to pick up or work with most of the customers is our commitment to look at continuous improvement and look at how do we actually build this entire system together with the stakeholders and the community. We feel that every end user is a contributor as well. He can
things that's happening in India. So thank you, Amitabh. I think Manmeet, you needed a second.
We'll convert it into a memento which they'll give you after the session.
Okay, so like they say, break ke baad. We'll get to the next question that I had. So I think, Amitabh, you talked a little bit about the voice AI technology being critical. So I'm going to go to Santosh a little bit in terms of what do you see in terms of speech technology and its reach for truly population scale? What is it that you're seeing, progress-wise? What are you seeing challenges-wise?
Yeah, I think first of all, I mean, so far many people used to think that voice is just a convenience. I mean, we have built these great technology systems which are available to people. A lot of apps, government, private apps have been built. They used to support English and then we added languages. But still, we thought that adding few more languages to apps may be sufficient. But how many people actually know, I mean, India still has 300 million people using feature phones. There are much bigger number of the people who are digitally, like Amitabh was also saying, digitally not literate. They can forward things on WhatsApp, they can watch videos on YouTube, but they can't really interact with these apps, right? Definitely ask, and I am a Sindhi, if you ask me, do you know how to type in Sindhi in mobile phone? No, I don't, right? It's not, I don't even know that feature, how easy it is or not. So, and that is where the voice and language becomes very, very crucial, right? I mean, and the voice is probably the oldest technology that we had. I mean, voice is how people connect to each other in their own language, in their native language. So it's, for technology to be truly inclusive, it shouldn't be harder for people to adopt it. By making people learn new thing in typing or using smartphones and understand how these buttons operate, we are actually not necessarily including everyone. We are, it's not just inconvenience, it's an exclusion of people. And same goes for AI also. I mean, globally there are about 7,000 spoken languages. In India alone, we have about 100 plus spoken languages. But if you ask me how many of these languages are there on the AI map, I'm sure they are in hundreds, right? Not even in thousands. So there are a lot of languages which are not in AI map. In last couple of years, I think, so obviously we need to accelerate, not just in India and global south, I think in African nations everywhere, to bring these languages onto AI map, which means the LLMs that we are building shouldn't just understand few languages, they should be able to understand any languages. There needs to be urgency of building these voice models which can understand not necessarily in 22 official languages of India, but every other language of India. And India is a unique place, just like I think global south also. For every language we have so many dialects. The same Hindi that we speak in Delhi is very different than in Lucknow, than in Bihar. So how can AI understand all these languages? Like Amitabh said, I mean, there's a lot of work already happening on language side, but I think there's an urgency and criticality to accelerate that work on the language side. And good news is the technology is evolving faster than we anticipated, and it's moving very, very fast.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Santosh. Thank you. I'm going to go to Vijay a little bit in terms of, so obviously language technology is supposed to bridge the divide amongst the haves and the have-nots. Do you see this happening in particular sectors, or is it something that you're seeing, broadly across multiple sectors?
Yeah, the Gates Foundation plays the role of a convener. So we've been looking at making lessons learned in India apply to Africa and seeing going the other way. Some of the work we've done so far, some of the work we've been doing so far is in training data. It's more fundamental. It's not sector-specific work. It's been taking African languages and creating very high-quality training data so you can bring the word error rates down under 10%. Some of the languages we tested with 200 hours of high-quality data, you could get it to that error rate. So our work has been primarily more fundamental, not sector-specific. That said, one of the initiatives that we supported called Urembo in Rwanda is to make voice-based access to government services. There's 240 services that would normally be available to someone that's literate, and by building voice-based capabilities, now it's available to a lot more, and the costs come down substantially. That's one which is about government service delivery. The other one is, I would say, in health. It's another project in Rwanda called Horizon 1000. It's just getting started. We've kicked off some pilots. And that one is about primary healthcare, and that has a voice and chatbot component too. So as Santosh was saying, it's no longer we need to do voice. It's not a nice to have. It's a core offering, and this is how we deliver inclusive solutions.
Thanks, Vijay. Thank you. Chinay, I'm going to come to you because obviously, like I mentioned earlier in your introduction, so there's a lot of focus on research on your side as well. So I wanted to ask you, how do you see the translation from research to production systems, and what is your experience with that?
Thank you so much. So firstly, I'll start by saying it's good to be back in Delhi. I actually studied at JNU University a couple of years ago, so it feels like a full circle moment to come talk about languages here. So what we've seen, so as Masakane, what we exist as is a community of practitioners interested in research, and trying to then see how that research that we do, but not just research is where we started from. Now we are investing into the ecosystem, looking at the creation of data sets, and the governance around that data, because that's quite critical, as well as enabling the ecosystem through understanding research for innovation and benchmarking, and then as well innovation itself. So particularly looking at from research to practical use, one of the key things that we actually just closed as a request for proposals was trying to understand how we benchmark this work and then how it can be applied. Because the biggest issue is that some of these innovations, as mentioned, you can't have a system that only represents the national 22 national languages. People speak a whole lot more. So which means that when some of these models or technologies are introduced into different contexts, they don't work. And particularly particularly for global majority countries, because their technologies, we are often playing catch up or left behind in the innovation. So this is part of our purpose then of saying, how do we evaluate the models that are out there? How do we create a systematic standard that everyone can then assess to see this is what works within a context of diversity and cultural nuance and difference? Because that, I think, is oftentimes what is the beautiful part of global majority context, is that, like what was being mentioned, Swahili spoken in Kenya, in Nairobi, is not the same as Swahili spoken in Tanzania, because they actually grow up learning to speak that. So that is the essence of this work when we think about from research to practice. And then also kind of like as Masakane, one of our core pieces of work is actually to connect with the tech entrepreneurs on the continent. A lot of innovation on the continent is actually driven by tech entrepreneurs, in addition to the standard big tech companies. So the question really becomes, how do you ensure that what you're creating in terms of, is it high quality enough to be able to go to market? And also thinking about what is the business case that we often have to make with entrepreneurs. I was in a conversation with an entrepreneur who was building a voice solution for lawyers. And they were like, I don't see the value of building for African languages. And this was someone from, I think they were from Kenya. So we were actually then having a conversation with them to actually show that the value of work, as particularly that it's already been done in India, for example, so citing Bashni, to actually then say there is a value in actually being proactive in ensuring that African languages are represented in the product you take to market. And then this is the importance of connecting to the researchers so that the work is not done in siloed efforts.
Absolutely. That's an excellent perspective. Thank you. Amita, I'm going to come back to you with a question. So the two questions actually I have, because Bashini's been doing a lot of work in this area. Are you seeing particular sectors where the adoption is more? Is the impact more in certain sectors or domains like agriculture or education? Or where are you seeing the proliferation of this technology? And the second thing is, this is an important question, not only because of the experience you have. What remains stubbornly difficult?
Okay, so what remains difficult is a very long list of things, actually. And although we have progressed a long way, with obvious Santosh, we are working on Mahavistar, which is actually giving, voice advice to the farmers in Marathi. The complete journey is voice enabled. But then, obviously, the challenges remain. The challenges remain in multiple areas. One is that you still do not have the digital dictionary of the country. There are a lot of words which are not known in the native language to the digital systems. It includes even the names of places, because when we worked with Ministry of Panchayat, we got 270,000 panchayats onto the digital systems. But when we talk to Survey of India, they also do not have, they say that there is about 16 to 18 lakh places which they want to digitize into the system. Those are the number of places which are there, Either it is a Kaspa or a Suba or whatever. It is basically not there in digital systems, and that is something which we are working upon. So that's one area. Emotions is another area. And emotional rendering of voice is also changes the meaning. And there are some languages like Mizo or Khasi, those are more or less phonetic languages. Same words mean multiple things spoken differently. So that's another area of challenge. So there are multiple issues which are there, and those are to be sorted out over a period of time as the technology progresses. But what we have, we are quite encouraged to see the adoption. So that's the brighter side of it, because it's delivering value, right? And social sector, because of its very nature that it is, the service delivery and governance can actually happen at the last mile, is the biggest uptake for that. So sometimes the systems are pushed, that means it is from the governance and service delivery angle. Sometimes the systems are actually adopted because it's giving certain actionables to the people as far as information is concerned to help the person. So, social sector happens to be agriculture, education, health. These are the sectors which actually need that because of their very nature. And also, because there is information available which can be delivered. But obviously, taking it to information delivery or service delivery or governance to actionable impact will take some time, because we still need to be getting very familiar with one of the very important things in voice is about dialects. As she said, that language can be same, but it can be spoken in different ways by different people, and sometimes it also differentiates between one person to another person. So that's another challenge which we have. But whatever results which we are seeing is exciting, and it should prompt the researchers and all of us to do more work in that area and ensure that we are living in better tomorrow. Because when we had recently were in some of the district areas in AP, for example, in Kopam or Arco Valley, and we were running these systems because people were speaking in English, and only 2 people understand English in the entire district, the collector and his assistant. Rest of the all people understand Telugu, and the only way to survive there is to have a language bridge. And fortunately, the person whom we had sent, he was a Malayali, so he didn't have any of the background, so he was using the app to actually communicate. So it's important when we look at, when we of course sit at a metro, we find that it is a cosmopolitan, we switch over languages as soon as we see there is an objection or there is a non-understanding from other side, but 100 kilometers from here, the world is different. And there is a lot of divide there.
Absolutely. Thank you. Chinna, I'm going to come to you for a follow-up question. So Amitabh talked about some of the challenges from an India standpoint. Africa has got infrastructure challenges too. So can you kind of elaborate on what is it that you see from that standpoint?
Thanks so much. So thinking about the challenges across the continent, one of the key things will always come from an infrastructure of resourcing around compute. So do people have enough compute? And if they do have it, how well is it used? But in addition to that, there are legacy issues that are consistent when it comes to connectivity on the continent anyway. So I think a point was earlier mentioned about people having access to feature phones. So there is still that reality that people are still connected to, like feature phones or at least lower end smartphones, because there's an affordability aspect to it. Which device can they afford? And we specifically talk about phones because people's first access to a digital device is a mobile phone, not a computer, not a laptop, but the mobile phone that they have. And then secondly, you're also looking at issues around electricity. So actual access to the power to power the models that you're going to be building, the technology you have. So that's a key issue in terms of then needing that infrastructural intervention beyond if you build the greatest data set and the greatest model. If there's no power to run it, there's no power to run it. And then also just really thinking about, we've been having conversations about capacity. Can people actually do we have the skill set on the continent? I think we do have it, but we're always also faced with the reality of brain drain and people traveling and leaving the continent. And then I think lastly, in terms of thinking about an infrastructure challenge, and again, I will take this to being about to market, is the adoption of the services that are created in people's languages. And this is determined by, I think at a national level, if a country already has that type of policy in place. So coming from South Africa, the government recognizes 11 languages across the country, and they have launched digital services through digital public infrastructure work where they do recognize those languages. And the question becomes, to what extent then are people creating tools and resources not just for information giving, but also knowledge exchange? Because a lot of the times then that is the question of, you can be told what to do, but can you actually interact with the platform in your own chosen language? So that again is one of the connecting the infrastructure issues to the end use and to the market. So those are some of the challenges we face. But I think most critical, which I had almost forgotten, is also high quality data. So we have seen earlier investments that were done, the Gates Foundation, GIZ, where then we have seen languages such as Kiswahili and Kinyarwanda and Luganda move from being low resource languages to at least well resourced languages. So there's quite a number of data sets you can find there. But there are over 2,000 languages on the continent. And so then that's just like a drop in the ocean of what is there. So then there is that need of actually creating high quality data sets that allow for people to actually build on top of them to have that foundational basis. So those are some of the core issues that we face across the continent, and they always have to be placed in context dependent on what is the actual national drive for these interventions to take place.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chinay. Thank you. Now, Vijay, I'm going to come back to you. I think from a Gates Foundation perspective, obviously you're looking globally. Now you're looking at Africa, you're looking at Southeast Asia, you're looking at India, you're looking at different parts of the world. How do you prioritize what you actually want to focus on?
It's a hard question. I mean, there's 7,000 languages, and I think over 80% are spoken by less than 100,000 people. So it is hard to go after all the languages. I think there's a breadth-first approach and a depth-first approach depending on what you're pursuing. On the broader side is multilingual models that can address multiple languages in one shot. Those are the kinds of collecting training data. That's one approach where you address multiple languages in one shot. On the depth first, it's more sector-specific use cases, like the integrated government service in Rwanda, or the agriculture services that we work on in India, where you go deep and address them. So we are, as a convener, we're more use case driven. We work with what the needs are, and it's not a language first approach, but more a use case first approach, and the languages come. So if we're working in Nigeria, we would choose the languages that are most spoken in that area. If it's like an agriculture advisory, for a government service, you would choose the most spoken language and target that first.
Fair enough, fair enough. Santosh, I'm going to come back to you with a question. For low resource languages in India, I know that you're working on some low resource languages currently, and you're trying to kind of create something that will happen for remote areas, remote languages, etc. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So yeah, I think, and like everyone in the panel is saying, the getting all the languages included is so critical, right, for AI systems to work and to be inclusive for the last mile population. And we recently, actually did a project along with Government of Maharashtra and Agri. It's called Mahavistar AI, and one of the, I think, showcase project to in the AI. The Mahavistar app already has been downloaded by about 25 lakhs downloads have happened. Some 15 lakh AI queries have been done, some 5 lakh AI interactions. And this is entirely built in Marathi for Marathi, right? It's been a journey of last 5-6 months, and obviously there are a lot of partners who came together to build it. But then we got a call from one of the district collectors, in fact, Government of Maharashtra, Nandurbar, is saying, in my district there are 3 languages, tribal languages are spoken, and Bhili is among one of them. And can Mahavistar Agri app support Bhili? I said, okay, it's not even one of the 22 official languages. It's spoken by less than, 1 crore people, and it's across Gujarat, Maharashtra, Rajasthan. And she says, whatever support is needed, I'm going to bring it onto the table. But I want this language to be part of the Maharashtra Agri. And that's when the journey started. And there were partners like Karya, I think Bhashni, Amitabh's team, AI for Bharat. Everyone came together with a mission that can we bring the Bhili language onto an AI map, right? And it's been a journey of just last 6 to 8 weeks, not months. With the support of the local administration, we got a lot of local community people who came together to what we call donate their data or the voices to be part of the community. Right? It's not a trivial task, by the way, to bring a low resource language onto AI map. You need to have a lot of data collection exercise, and a data collection has to be in a certain way. You have to have a spoken speech, spontaneous speech. You need to have a translation. Beely also doesn't have an independent script, so it relies on the Devanagari script or the other scripts. So you needed a translation from Beely to Marathi or Beely to English. You needed somebody who could speak Beely, somebody who could read Beely, and then when it's translated, verified it. It's a hard job, right? And you require, typically it takes a year or longer for bringing a language to an AI map, but with the support of the local administration and the teams like Karya, Bhashini, we were able to do this job in less than 6 weeks. And what we are also saying is it's not just about one language bringing onto an AI map. Can we create a template that can be used for bringing all the other low resource language, not just for India, but even for Global South? I think we're talking about 11 languages, official languages in South Africa alone. So can this be a template to collect data, annotate data, which is the hardest part, by the way, build models, and then integrate into applications? It's not just, if you build a model, the job doesn't end there. You need to also be able to apply it into a real use case. And what we are trying to do is to bring it into a Mahavistar Agri app so that people in Nandurbar district or in Gujarat, they could interact with this Agri bot and get their local farming advisor.
Absolutely. Thank you, Santosh. Amitabh, one question for you. There's a lot of talk about data security and data privacy. What is your perspective on how do we adhere to those norms that are nationally mandated, and how do you see this going forward?
Yeah, this, currently, of course, we have a DPDP Act in India, and we are supposed to abide by that, and we are abiding by that. But this will become a big challenge as we go by, because as the systems will use voice, and voice being attached to a person and becoming a personal information, there would be a way we should be looking at to handle this particular situation. Now, currently, of course, when we are looking at data contribution on voice, we are looking for a consent from the people who can actually say that, this data can be used for training purposes. But when the users actually come to the system and they start using it, and specifically for the system which are quote unquote free of charge, then there is an obvious risk that that data is actually going into the system and is being used for the purpose which is not it's supposed to be. It becomes also more difficult when you're looking at kind of health data, right? Health data is something which you are giving, means normal health data as well as voice, when you're putting your voice into it, means you are consenting to give the data to the doctor for a purpose which is treatment. But should it be used for AI model is not for which you are giving the consent. So now there's a second dimension. The first dimension was that you're giving the data, that is a consent, but the purpose has also got to be defined, and the purpose is to train the AI model, perhaps a consent has to be taken for that also. Then when we are looking at perhaps the granularity will again come into picture, because you want to perhaps give the data to do it, do certain activities, but it should be a portion of data, not the other, not the complete data. So I think there would be complexities which will start coming in over a period of time, and we would have to basically, just as AI, when the technology progresses, you don't have, you may perhaps will not be able to think of all the things. There are known unknowns and there are unknown unknowns which will keep unfolding over a period of time, and we would have to handle them as they come by. But the thing which we have currently adopted is to ensure that we keep ourselves an open source domain. So it helps in two things. We are socially auditable, so that's one good part. So somebody wants to raise an objection that can be taken up. Second is it also ensures that we compete with ourselves, because to stay relevant, you already have put out what you know, so you have to stay relevant, so you have to do better than what you're doing. Otherwise, shelf life of any AI system is about 6 months or so. So some way we have to find mechanisms which is easily monitorable or whatever. Otherwise, we are going to be in a situation where we are continuously picking up nitty-gritties and trying to solve them, rather than looking at the technology development, which perhaps would be far more, has a very fast pace today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Vijay, I'm going to come to you because, we talked about this earlier. I think you had this whole debate about whether we use the global models that AI companies offer versus sovereign models created in countries. Your thoughts on, what is your viewpoint on that?
I think I would point back to the actual use case. How quickly do you want to get it to market? What are the economics of it? And sovereignty, how important is that? So that would determine whether you go build the model yourself or you use one of the off-the-shelf ones. I think longer term, building your own is the better way to go. Now, may I piggyback on what Amitabh said? One of the things in the health sector is that voice is always considered identifiable data, PHI. So federated approaches have been a solution that has been widely used, where the model travels to the data and you learn from it, but the actual data never is made available to the users of the data. So I think there's some precedent in the health sector that can be broadly used for voice-based solutions.
Fair enough, fair enough. Chinay, I'm going to come back to you with one question. So we talked about the differences between what India is doing, what Africa is doing, etc. How do we create a South-South dialogue to make this faster? How do we accelerate the process of benefiting Wholesome, across the sector?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So one of the core things we always talk about is actually breaking down the silos and the fragmentation. So how we do this is, as we gather in this room, so at least, people are connecting, people are learning about Masakane. Masakane actually means to build together, loosely translated from isiZulu, so we live that way. So we are often in conversations actually with partners from speaking to CORE, speaking to I think Carrier, and then also facilitated by our funding partners. But it's not just thinking about South-South collaborations from those who've created in Southeast Asia, from those who've created in India, from those who've created in Latin America, and finding the similarities in the issues that are there. So we often try to engage at, firstly, that research level, so co-creation of knowledge, but also engaging in spaces of actually creating the solutions. So working in spaces where they're collaborators, the tech entrepreneurs, we bring them together. Quite recently, we supported a conference called African Machine Learning Days. It comes out of the students from Tunisia based in Switzerland. So it actually did bring together, and it was held in South Africa. So that's already 3 different countries coming together. But in those spaces, what they managed to do is also bring in multi-stakeholders, even from the private sector, big tech, like when I say big tech, I mean Google, into the conversation. And what that actually created was an avenue for young people to have, because Africa is quite a youthful continent. So whenever I talk about collaboration, I'm starting from how do I ensure that young people actually do have access to these spaces. And the critical questions they were asking was, if I build my model, can I actually then be able to make money out of it? And so then to have someone in the room who can actually give an example of how they can build up that scaling for purposeful impact is quite important. So I think the South-South collaboration, and this is our call from Masakane, comes in thinking about what is the practicality of impact and how do we ensure that we do not repeat the same mistakes or the same errors that other people faced before. Of course, they have to be nuanced into context. We're not all the same, but there are lessons that we can learn, particularly thinking about privacy and data protection. That's a significant issue everywhere. So, as Vijay mentioned, we can look to health. That means that we don't have to recreate the wheel. We can actually look at to what others have done, and that's only possible if people are also connecting with us as Masakane and our role in enabling the ecosystem.
Absolutely, and this summit is a good way to actually start that dialogue. Yeah, thanks. I've got very little time, so I'm going to take two questions. Yeah, go ahead. The lady first. Yeah. Okay.
There were a few things spoken together, and we work at the intersection of everything. Like, I'm from Khushi Baby, so we work with Microsoft on the Asha bot, where we use Vashni for the Asha level, very personal dialogues to help the last mile population. And Nandurbar is one of the states where we work. So basically, one of our biggest challenge of building the model, and also from the research perspective, have been the lack of even the digital dictionary of exact kind of words, what they mean for them, and even let's say Bhili, even in Bhili or Pauri, there are same very specific word which doesn't have a digital or medical terminology which you can interpret the beneficiaries out of. So how are we, even that same thing we face in Rajasthan, in India, so how are we looking at solving this problem in terms of bridging this gap and making the LLMs implement?
Yeah. So, anybody in particular?
Anybody who wants to.
Okay. So maybe I'll take a stab at it. So I think one of the things that we found was, for example, agri terms in Maharashtra were not some things that were the same across. So we actually have started using glossaries up front in terms of saying X, Y, Z mean the same thing, kind of the framework. So that's one way to do this, to essentially translate it up front before you actually feed it to a model. But I'd let any other person in the panel actually.
So I think, I mean, this is a real problem, and that having the right glossary, vertical glossary as well as the language glossary, it's not like Amitabh ji also said that this doesn't always exist, right, in terms of, and there's no easy answer, but I think the best possible way is to work with the local administration, the department. If you're working with healthcare, then the local healthcare department would be the best place to create a glossary if it doesn't exist, or validate a glossary to say, yes, it makes sense if it is spoken like that, rather than, and then for that also you need a lot of linguistic expert, which again the department can bring in. They have access to the school teachers, professors, the linguistic experts. So the best way that we have found out working for us is to work with the local state governments and their corresponding departments.
So one of the very high value, challenge which is there, which has got a very high intrinsic value, is land records. It's an example where every state has its own terminology for the same thing. And there's no other way but to, ensure that these departments start preparing the glossaries. And fortunately for us, that we have been able to create that momentum. The land records glossary has been prepared, and it would soon get digitized so that you are in a position to actually, be interoperable as far as land records are concerned. Same is the case with the food grains and other things. There are terminologies which are mismatching. So yes, there is an active work which is going on in the government and the departments to build those glossaries which will actually help us take out these anomalies. And if required, the experts can sit and say that what should be the case. We are doing that for auditor's office, we are doing that for multiple places as of now. Of course, we are not doing it because we are not experts. We are experts in technology. But we have currently, I think that, every state would have perhaps 1 million words which has to be digitized, right? And every line ministry would have approximately 1 million words which needs to be digitized. So it's a massive work, actually.
So I'm going to give this gentleman a chance because I think he's been very persistent. So it's one last
We are
question.
from Irish AI, sir, and I'm a BTech final year student. So this is the second time I'm attending your session. So my question is for Vijay sir and Amitabh sir. So Vijay sir, you have said that rather than using some other's model, you need to have your own personal model. So whenever we small entrepreneurs come into place, they are going to compare us with Sarvamay and Bashni. And didn't mean to offend, but when it comes to Sarvamay and Bashni, again we need to compare with Google and Meta, who have already came up with 1,600 plus languages that have been trained. And as Santosh sir said, there are 7,000 plus languages. So how do you suggest us to come into play in this big thing? And coming to Amitabh sir, you have said about Bashni doing the translation and all. Sorry to ask, how much accuracy is it there, and isn't it possible it can raise a global war when doing the translation, because translation is a big thing. And if this is even though we have Asha and all, recently Sarvamaya has come into play because
We got your question, so let them answer. Yeah. So anything? Yeah. I mean, I think.
Let's chat after. It's probably better. Yeah. I mean, you're asking about how startups compete with big tech. It's a classic problem that all startups face. How do you differentiate yourself? So that's what you need to focus on. So find your target audience, and can you build a killer solution that's better than the big tech?
building a wheel, do you say that just use the wheel that has already been
Oh, absolutely! Don't reinvent the wheel. But if you have something that's unique that you can add as a startup, go for it.
See,
Yeah, I think.
yeah. So going by what you talked about, accuracy per se. So I was in the other session where I was saying that we experimented with speech-to-speech translation in front of our minister as well as the Gujarat government officials. The officials felt that it was 80% right, while as the minister said it was, beyond his imagination. It was so good. Now the point which is there is not about whether it is accurate or not. Accuracy is all about whether the people are able to accept it or not. But the pertinent question which you have raised, which is basically what do I do? It is to go back to the basics, and as Vijay said,